Hi guys, Jay here. It's Sunday evening, so I'll be editing this video tomorrow on Monday and I'll get it out for you as soon as I can. Before we head into the Japanese team selection and thoughts, just want to quickly recap regarding the Chinese Grand Prix, so let's get into it. So for teams 1 and 2, I ran Ferrari, but what made it worse is I took a 20 points transfer penalty. I didn't want to use Limitless yet because I'm saving it for Miami, and I'll get to my strategy in just a sec. That being said, thankfully Oscar Piastri sort of come to the rescue, giving me 90 points because he was my DRS driver. However, as you'd be aware by now, Ferrari were disqualified after the race. Charles Leclerc, as well as Pierre Gasly, who I didn't have in any of my teams, disqualified for an underweight car by 1 kilogram. And Lewis Hamilton disqualified due to his skid block. Now, there was a bit of confusion as to how this would work regarding the point system, and so I'm taking this from a post that F1 Fantasy Tools put up, where it says, additional penalty points earned for disqualifications will now be applied to the constructor instead of the drivers. Disqualified drivers will only receive the not classified penalties, -20 for the race instead of the previous -25, because last year it was -25 points for disqualification. The constructor will receive an additional 10-point penalty for disqualification from the race/sprint, resulting in -30 points as the driver's contribution to their race/sprint total. The same follows for their qualifying session, with an additional 5-point penalty to the constructor for the disqualification, resulting in -10 points as the driver's contribution to the qualifying total. So in short, it's -20 for the driver, plus an extra 10 as a penalty for the constructor. In this case, it's -60 because it was both Leclerc and Hamilton that got disqualified. For Team 2, similar situation. I went with a 20 points transfer penalty, got hit by the Ferrari disqualifications. However, this team is an early budget build team. I went into the Chinese Grand Prix to start building my budget. Kimi Antonelli was my top scorer with 58 points, again my DRS boost driver. And we've got 147 total. This is currently my worst team, which is why I want to start building the budget now. Again, I'll get to my budget building strategy in a sec. And then finally, for my third team, which is currently my best team, 274 points. I only took a 10-point penalty for 1 additional transfer. Lando Norris, my DRS boost driver, coming in with 82 points. And the big scorer, of course, was McLaren with a whopping 101 points. In terms of the global ranking, as I said, my third team, Year of the Rookie, is currently my best team. They're just shy of the top 100,000. But I've got work to do with my main team, DelermainSports F1, and my second team, number 56, due to the disqualifications of Ferrari. And so it's important that we start building budget now. That being said, even before the disqualifications, I came up with my strategy. The goal is to build my budget as much as possible by Miami, and then play Limitless, and then wildcard in teams 2 and 3 at Imola. I was going to wildcard at Imola with Team 1, but I'm going to have to wildcard for Japan to do what I want to do if this is to work. And so I'm going to be relying very heavily on McLaren to score points so that when we do rebuild our team in Imola, we won't be too far behind as we start to regain what we've lost and then some. Think of it like a Big Dipper effect. We're going to sacrifice now on the point side of things to increase the budget, and then come Imola, we sacrifice the budget to regain the points, and hopefully beyond. So, what's the plan with Team 1? Well, we're getting rid of Piastri, Hadjar, and our 2 constructors. This gives us a base. The first constructor is, of course, McLaren, as I've already said. And then I'm weighing towards HAAS. If I go to the budget builder, so at the moment, this is going by the required points, as obviously there's no simulation until after the free practice. HAAS currently need a -31 to maximise their increase in budget. So for me, that's a no-brainer, and they did well for me in my Team 3 over the Chinese Grand Prix. VCarb is another option for points. They need a -3, but given the recent strategy calls, I think it's too risky. And at least with HAAS, even if one car DNFs, we're still covered by around 11 points. So at the moment, we've got Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Oliver Bearman. We've already made 2 transfers with McLaren and HAAS. What we can then do, well, what I was going to do is I was going to bring in Kimi Antonelli as my top budget driver, but he's now reached the threshold and is now a premium driver. So we need a different option. So looking at the F1 Fantasy Tools budget builder, the best 2 options would be Lance Stroll and Alexander Albon. Albon has currently scored 28 points over the 2 races. However, Stroll has scored 33. Also, Stroll only needs a point to gain a 0.6 increase in budget. So right now, I'd be tempted to go for Stroll, which I never thought I would say. But then what we could also do is bring in Albon as well for the points, as well as the budget increase, which leaves us with Hülkenberg, Bearman, and Ocon. Ocon needs a -2, Bearman needs 3, and Hülkenberg needs 6. I think this is going to be the way to go. I was contemplating Tsunoda, but he needs 25 points. I don't see him getting that just because of position plus the way the racing balls have gone about their strategy. And so I think these are the 5 drivers that we're looking at. Now you might be wondering, why am I not going with a premium driver as well? And it's simple. It's to maximize my budget as much as possible. If all these assets hit their threshold, their 0.6 increase and the 0.3 from McLaren, I take away an extra 3.9 million. And that's the reason. That, along with the money that I save to reinvest come Imola. The downside with Team 1 is that I'm going to have to use the wild card because I'm not prepared to take another points hit in terms of transfers. For Team 2, it's a case of removing the constructors. And again, McLaren and HAAS. For this team, I may keep Antonelli in the team for now, just because this is my worst team and they could do with a little points boost. So I think for now, this would be the play with Team 2. It just means that I'd be losing out on an extra 0.3 million in terms of budget. And then for Team 3, this is my best team. It's simply removing Norris and Hadjar, making Stroll the DRS driver, bringing in Albon, and bringing in Bearman. If I wanted to with this team, since it is my best team, I could even swap my DRS to Albon, just so that I've got a bit of a differential between the teams. So in terms of chips, honestly, the only chips I would consider for Japan is the final fix and then the negative. Simply because it looks like it's going to be a wet race as things stand. Again, this is being recorded 2 weeks before the race, so the weather could change. Hopefully it will, and it will be a drier race. I'm not interested in using Limitless. I'm saving that for Miami. And wildcard, I'm going to have to wildcard Team 1 to do what I want to do, but I'm saving wildcard for Teams 2 and 3. Autopilot and extra DRS, I'm not thinking about until the second half of the season, until I've got a decent team together of 2 premium constructors and premium drivers. If we go back to the budget builder very briefly, what I would say, if you're going for a premium constructor and a premium driver, the only premium constructors I'd be interested in right now is McLaren and Mercedes, and the only premium drivers I'd be interested in is Norris, Piastri, Russell, possibly Antonelli. The downside is his threshold will now start to decline, I imagine. He currently needs 9 points. I'm sure he'll get 9 points, but he is now in that top tier premium threshold. As I've already said, at the moment it's a wet race for Japan, 24% chance, more so with qualifying as it's 53% chance of rain. So this could mix things up in terms of the grid and decision making. Here in the UK, it's another early morning for us for the Japanese Grand Prix, with free practice 1 and 2 on Friday morning at 3:30 and 7 AM respectively, followed by free practice 3 at 3:30 AM on Saturday, and then qualifying is at 7 AM. As for the race, that's at 6 AM on Sunday. Last year's top 5 in the Japanese Grand Prix was Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. The only two that I can see being in the top 5 out of those is of course Lando Norris and possibly Charles Leclerc, but Ferrari have got to get it right. In terms of grid rivals, I'm just going to focus on my main team for the channel, which is my global team. I paid release fees for Leclerc and for Ocon before the Grand Prix, and I brought in Antonelli and Alexander Albon. Everyone increased in value except for Antonelli. He lost 400,000 per K. But that said, it was a good result for me in F1 Grid Rivals, I think. I climbed up about 25,000 places. The decision I've got to make, though, is that Carlos Sainz is now out of contract. He's my turbo driver, as we know in fantasy. So I'm looking at either Lance Stroll or Oscar Piastri. Lance Stroll is actually cheaper and scored more points so far. Piastri is obviously in the McLaren. Another option would be George Russell. But at the moment, I'm swaying towards Lance Stroll. Now, in case you missed it, I did put a post up on Sunday. There's rumours and speculation going around that Red Bull may swap Lawson for Tsunoda for the Japanese Grand Prix. I hope this doesn't happen for 2 reasons. One, just as a general F1 fan, I don't want Tsunoda to ruin his career, if I'm being blunt. I would admit, at the end of last year, I did a video talking about the Red Bull situation and that I believed Yuki should have been given a chance first. I'm happy that didn't happen now. I would rather him stay at Racing Bulls because that's where he's performing best. But also from an F1 fantasy perspective, he's currently 8.4 million. He needs to hit 25 points already as it is to hit his 0.6 maximum value increase. Whereas Liam Lawson is valued at double the price, 16.8 million, even though he's lost in value, and needs to score a whopping 56 points to increase his maximum value increase. My concern here is that if Red Bull do decide to swap Tsunoda and Lawson, is the impact this could have on our F1 fantasy teams in regards to the new pricing system. There was already issues with a similar situation last year where people that had Logan Sargent, when he became inactive, teams were able to keep him in their team for a while, which meant they had a bit of an advantage when it came to value growth, because obviously Sargent couldn't DNF. But then also when Ollie Behrman came in for Carlos Sainz and then later Kevin Magnussen, his value was overpriced. And so I worry that if Tsunoda is swapped with Lawson, their values may swap or they remain the same. Either way, I think it could be a problem. And just on that situation, I'll put a link in the description, but Horner did address this and he has agreed that Lawson is struggling, but that he needs time. He got pushed about whether there would be a change, and from reading the article, the short version is, quote, they're going to go away and look at the data. That's all I can say on that. So there you are, guys. That's my plan moving forward and my team thoughts for Japan. As always, thank you for watching. Goodbye.